Stop crying, Tyler. The dinosaur isn't yours anymore. It belongs to everyone now. I stood frozen in the classroom doorway, watching my 6-year-old son's face crumble as Miss Peterson calmly removed Mr. Snuggles, his beloved stuffed dinosaur, his constant companion since he was 2 years old, from his desperate grip.
My name is Rebecca Collins, and yes, I'm taking my kids' school to court. Go ahead, call me crazy, everyone else does. But I know what I saw, and I know what they were doing to me. They hide behind the words sharing, but trust me, this was something far more dangerous. And now, I'm demanding justice, no matter how many people think I've crossed the line. Let me back up 12 hours. It was a Tuesday in late September when my phone rang during my shift at County General Hospital. Emma's name lit up the screen, which was unusual. Greenwood Academy had strict rules about phone use during school hours. Mommy? Her voice was trembling. Can you come get us, please? What's wrong, baby? They took Mr. Snuggles from Tyler and he won't stop crying, and Miss Donna said we have to learn to share, but I abandoned my lunch break and drove straight to the school, my hands shaking on the wheel. Greenwood Academy was supposed to be the best. We'd stretched our budget to afford it, believing the progressive teaching methods would give our kids the best start. Everyone praised Donna Harris, the owner and principal. 30 years in education, award-winning, innovative. That's what I'd thought anyway. When I arrived, I found Tyler exactly as I described, red-faced, devastated, while Miss Peterson explained their new Sharing Hearts program. Personal toys now belonged to the classroom community. Tyler would get Mr. Snuggles back at the end of the week, but for now, he needed to learn about collective ownership. He's 6 years old, I said, trying to stay calm. That dinosaur is his security item. You can't just take it. We're teaching children that individual ownership creates inequality. Miss Peterson replied, like she was reading from a script. Miss Harris believes. I don't care what Miss Harris believes. Give me the dinosaur, now. On the shelf behind her sat other confiscated items, a blanket, a toy car, a teddy bear, each with a child's name tag, each representing another crying kid somewhere in this building. I grabbed Mr. Snuggles and marched straight to the administrative office. Donna Harris sat behind her desk, silver hair perfect, smile warm and practiced. She'd built Greenwood from nothing 15 years ago. Parents trusted her completely. Rebecca, what a nice... Did you authorize taking comfort items from children without asking parents? Her smile never wavered. Ah, our Sharing Hearts program. It's wonderful, isn't it? We're teaching children that personal attachment to material objects creates barriers between people. When we learn to share everything, we build true community. They're 6 and 8 years old, Donna. Exactly the right age to start. Rebecca, we're living in a divided world. Children raised in bubbles of individual ownership will never solve collective problems like climate change or inequality. If we don't teach them young that community matters more than personal property, how will they ever learn cooperation? Something in her tone, the absolute certainty. The way she dismissed my concerns so casually while speaking about saving the world, it made my stomach turn. You took my son's stuffed animal without my permission. You made him cry. Temporary discomfort is part of growth. You're a nurse, don't you? Sometimes have to cause momentary pain to achieve healing? The comparison was obscene. That's completely different, is it? She tilted her head, studying. We've had wonderful results so far. Most parents are very supportive once they understand the philosophy. I want you to stop this program. That's not going to happen. And if you have a problem with our methods, perhaps Greenwood isn't the right fit for your family. I pulled Emma and Tyler closer. Tyler was clutching Mr. Snuggles now, his tears finally slowing. Maybe it isn't, I said quietly, but I'm not just pulling them out. I'm going to make sure you stop doing this to every tear. She actually laughed. And how exactly do you plan to do that? I didn't have an answer then, but looking at her absolute certainty that she was saving the world while my son stood there traumatized, I knew I'd find one. That night, holding both kids while we watched movies, I made a decision. This wasn't just about Emma and Tyler anymore. It was about every child who trusted adults to protect them, only to have that trust betrayed in the name of ideology. I was going to fight, and I was going to win. The next morning, I kept the kids home and started digging. Every enrollment form, every handbook, every newsletter, nowhere did it mention this Sharing Hearts program. Nowhere had I signed consent for anything like what they described. Then I started calling other parents. The first 3 said their kids seemed fine, but the 4th call changed everything. Oh God, Rebecca, I'm so glad you called. Jennifer's voice was tight with emotion. Sophie came home clutching her lunchbox yesterday. She finally told me they'd taken her favorite pencil case, the one her grandmother gave her before she died. Just took it and put it in a community bin. Did they let her call you? No. And when Sophie got upset, they sent her to something called the reflection room. She had to sit there for an hour watching videos about sharing. She was terrified I'd be angry at her for not being community-minded. My blood went cold. Jennifer, this isn't normal, I know. But everyone loves Greenwood. If I complain, they'll just say I'm overreacting. By the end of the day, I'd talked to 8 more parents. 3 had noticed their kids were quieter, less happy about school. 1 said his son asked if they were poor, because Miss Donna says rich people keep things and poor people share. That evening, I sat down with Emma and Tyler. I need you to tell me everything about this program, everything you've seen and heard. What they told me was worse than I'd imagined. The program had started 3 weeks earlier, gradually. First sharing classroom supplies, then snacks, then personal items. But it wasn't just about objects. Miss Donna says keeping secrets is selfish. Emma explained in her serious 8-year-old way. She says families who really love each other share everything, even thoughts. We have sharing circles now where everyone has to say something personal every day. What if you want to keep something private? She says privacy is just another word for hiding, and hiding means you don't trust your community. Tyler nodded solemnly. Jake had to tell everyone his parents are getting divorced. He cried. But Miss Donna said healing happens through sharing. These weren't just kids learning to share toys. This was psychological manipulation. I recorded them carefully, making sure they knew they were safe, that they weren't in trouble, that they had every right to keep things private. Then I researched Donna Harris. She'd written articles about deconstructing capitalist mindsets in young learners. She'd given talks about breaking down barriers of individual ownership. She had a following among certain educational theorists who believed traditional ideas about personal property were toxic. But she'd never implemented anything this extreme at Greenwood before. Why now? I found the answer in a business journal from 2 months earlier. Greenwood was in financial trouble. Enrollment down, teachers leaving. Donna had taken significant loans. And then, a grant opportunity. A progressive education foundation offering $500,000 for schools implementing revolutionary community-based learning models. My children were guinea pigs in an experiment designed to save a failing business. You know, I grew up in a small town where everyone knew everyone's business. Sometimes I wonder if that's where people like Donna learn that control can look like community if you dress it up right. Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments. So I'd love to know where touching stories. The next morning, I called a lawyer. Michael Torres listened to everything, then was silent for a long moment. Mrs. Collins, what you're describing could be psychological abuse, but schools have wide latitude in their methods. Proving this crosses the line won't be easy. You'll be fighting the entire institution. Other parents will defend them. You'll be portrayed as the problem, I know, and you still want to move forward? I looked at Emma and Tyler in the next room. I don't have a choice. Then let's start building your case. Within 48 hours, everything escalated. Donna sent an email, professional, carefully worded, offering to help me understand their pedagogical approach. I didn't respond. Michael advised against direct contact. Then came the social media posts. So grateful for the Sharing Hearts program. My daughter has become so much more generous and thoughtful. This is the kind of character-building education we #grateful-parent, #Greenwood family. The comments filled with agreement, hearts, and praise. But Jennifer messaged me privately. Don't let them control the narrative. Half these parents have no idea what's really happening in the classrooms. Michael suggested I reach out to former teachers. It took days to track down Patricia Nguyen, who'd taught 2nd grade until July. We met at a coffee shop. I knew someone would eventually question this, she said before I'd even sat down. I'm just sorry it took this long. She told me she'd watched Donna change over the past year. The financial pressure made her desperate. When Patricia objected to early versions of Sharing Hearts, Donna made her life miserable. Constant observations, written warnings, public criticism. She wanted teachers who'd follow orders without question. When I said forcing children to disclose personal family information was inappropriate, she offered me severance to leave quietly. Why didn't you report it? Patricia's laugh was bitter. To who? The school board is full of her friends. I'd signed an NDA? If I talk publicly, I lose my pension, but you're talking to me because I can't sleep at night, knowing what she's doing to those kids. She pushed a folder across the table. Program guidelines. The real ones, not what she showed parents. And emails. I opened it with shaking hands. Sharing Hearts Program, Phase 3. Children must be encouraged to share all possessions from home. Resistance should be met with empathy, redirection, and community accountability. Parents who object should be identified and managed accordingly. Managed accordingly? I looked up. She keeps a list. Parents she considers problems. Your name is definitely on it now. The emails were damning. Communications between Donna and staff about specific children. Strategies for breaking down attachment to individual ownership. Plans for dealing with difficult parents. One email about Tyler specifically. This child's excessive attachment to the stuffed animal is concerning. Mother appears to be fostering unhealthy independence. Recommend increased intervention. They'd been targeting my 6-year-old son. I want to testify, Patricia said suddenly. I know it breaks my NDA. I know I'll lose everything. But I want to testify. Thank you, I whispered. Don't thank me yet. Donna will fight with everything she has. You're going to be destroyed in this community. Your kids will be talked about. Are you ready for that? I thought about Emma asking when they could go back to normal school, a school where she felt safe. I'm ready. That week, Michael drafted the complaint. We were suing Greenwood Academy and Donna Harris for violation of parental rights, unlawful seizure of property, and emotional distress. We asked for $100,000 in damages and a court order shutting down the program. Once we file, there's no going back, Michael warned. You'll be in the news. Your life will get uncomfortable. I signed anyway. The story broke on Friday. By Saturday, my phone was exploding with messages. You're suing over sharing? What's wrong with you? This is why kids are so entitled. Parents like you. I hope they sue you for everything. But then other messages started coming. My daughter goes to Greenwood. After reading about your lawsuit, I started asking questions. She's been having nightmares about sharing circles. Thank you for being brave. I pulled my son out last month because something felt wrong. Your lawsuit made me realize I wasn't crazy. Jennifer called crying. Sophie told me something tonight. They've been recording the sharing circles, video recording kids talking about private family things. Rebecca, what are they doing with those recordings? I immediately called Michael. We need to request all video footage as evidence. If those recordings exist and she destroys them, we have her for destruction of evidence. This was chess now, strategic, calculated, but underneath the legal maneuvering, I was still just a mother watching her children slowly start to smile again. That's what made it all worth it. The real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A young man named Marcus, who'd been an IT intern at Greenwood during the summer, reached out to Michael. He'd seen the news and had something to say. I set up the recording system for the sharing circle, Marcus explained when we met. Ms. Eris told me it was for teacher training, but when I saw what they were recording, kids crying, talking about really personal stuff, I got uncomfortable. So I kept a backup drive, just in case. He pulled out a small external hard drive. Everything from September through early October. Michael's eyes lit up. Marcus, you may have just won this case. We watched the videos that evening in Michael's office. I made it through before I had to step outside. Emma, sitting in a circle of 8-year-olds while a teacher prompted, Emma, you've been keeping something to yourself. We can see it. What aren't you sharing? Emma's small voice. My dad forgot my birthday. He was supposed to call, but he didn't. And how did that make you feel? Sad. But it's private. Why is it private, Emma? If you're sad, your community should help you. Keeping sadness private is selfish. It means you don't trust us. I watched my daughter's face crumble. Watched her give in. Watched her share something that wasn't theirs to take. The Tyler video destroyed me. My 6-year-old in the reflection room, alone, staring at a screen showing cartoons about sharing. A timer in the corner, 47 minutes. He was clutching his stomach, clearly needing the bathroom, but the door was closed. When he finally knocked, "I need to go potty," a voice through a speaker, "Miss Peterson. Tyler, you can come out when you're ready to share, mister." Snuggles without crying. "Are you ready?" "I need to go, Tyler. This is about learning to put community before personal need. Are you ready to share?" My son, crying, begging. Then the wet spots spreading across his pants, humiliation visible even through the grainy footage. I was sick in Michael's trash can. "I know this is hard," Michael said gently, "but this is what we need. This is undeniable." He immediately filed an emergency motion, sending copies to Child Protective Services. Within 2 days, CPS launched an investigation. Donna's world was collapsing, but wounded animals are dangerous. 3 days later, a regional newspaper ran a story. "Nurse under investigation for patient neglect files. Lawsuit against school." The article claimed I was being investigated at my hospital for medications and patient care violations. It included quotes from anonymous sources about my supposed mistakes at work. Every word was a lie. I called my supervisor, Nancy, immediately. "Have you seen this?" "Yes, I've already contacted our legal team." "Rebecca, there is no investigation. You're one of our best nurses. This is pure defamation." But the damage was done. The article had been shared hundreds of times. Comments flooded in about what a terrible person I was. Michael filed a defamation suit within hours. But I felt exposed, attacked, vulnerable. Emma found me crying that night. "Mom, why are people so mean?" "It's because the truth is scary, baby. It's easier to attack the person telling it than admit they might be right. Like in Harry Potter when no one believed him about Voldemort." I laughed through my tears. Exactly like that. "But Harry won in the end." "Yes, he did." "Then we'll win too." The CPS investigation concluded 2 weeks before trial. Their report was clear. Greenwood Academy's Sharing Hearts program employed psychologically coercive techniques inappropriate for child development. Evidence suggests systematic disregard for child welfare in favor of ideological goals. It wasn't criminal charges, but it was validation. Official proof that I wasn't crazy. More parents came forward. By late November, Michael had statements from 23 families. Enrollment at Greenwood was plummeting. The week before trial, Michael spread our evidence across his conference table: videos, emails, CPS report, Dr. Chun's evaluation, testimony from dozens of families. "This is the strongest case I've built in 15 years, he said. "But Cromwell will come at you hard. He'll make you look vindictive, unstable, overprotective. The moment you lose control, he wins." What do I do? Tell the truth, calmly. Let the evidence speak. The trial date, December 10th. I was ready. The courtroom was packed when I arrived. Donna sat across the aisle, thinner than I remembered, tension visible despite her expensive suit. When our eyes met, hers were cold and flat. Judge Linda Potter entered, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "This is Collins versus Greenwood Academy," she began. "We're here to determine whether the defendant's program violated the rights and welfare of minor children. Mr. Torres, call your first witness." The plaintiff calls Rebecca Collins. I walked to the witness stand on unsteady legs, placed my hand on the Bible, and swore to tell the truth. Michael started easy: my background, my relationship with Greek, how long my kids attended. Then, tell the court about September 24th. I took a breath and began. The phone call. Tyler's tears. Finding him in the classroom, his dinosaur taken. "And what did Miss Harris say when you confronted her?" "She said it was part of sharing hearts. That personal attachment to objects creates barriers between people. When I objected, she said if I had a problem with their methods, perhaps Greenwood wasn't the right fit. Did you consent to this program?" "No. I was never informed it existed." "Did you consent to your children being recorded?" "Absolutely not." Michael walked me through everything other parents I'd contacted. Patricia's revelations, the discovery of videos. I kept my voice steady, my answers factual. Then Cromwell stood for cross-examination. "Mrs. Collins, you love your children very much, don't you? Of course, you'd do anything to protect them? Even ... exaggerate a situation. I haven't exaggerated anything, haven't you? Your son is 6 years old. Isn't he getting a bit old for a stuffed animal? Many children have comfort items. There's nothing unusual about that. But wouldn't part of growing up be learning to let go?" Perhaps Miss Harris was helping him mature? By making him wet himself in a locked room? That's not education, Mr. Cromwell. That's cruelty. His smile tightened. Let's discuss your work. You're a nurse at a busy hospital. Stressful job. Long hours. Is it fair to say you're often tired? Distracted? Maybe not always paying full attention to what's happening with your children? Michael objected. Relevance? I'm establishing that Mrs. Collins may not have had the full picture of her children's experience. Judge Potter allowed it. Ed Cromwell continued attacking my work schedule, my divorce, every personal detail he could twist. But I remembered Michael's advice. Stay calm. Let the evidence. Mr. Cromwell, I said quietly, I don't need to be an expert to know that what happened to my children was wrong. I'm not asking the court to believe me because I'm perfect. I'm asking them to believe the videos, the documented evidence, the CPS report. I'm just showing what happened. The evidence speaks for itself. Cromwell's confident expression faltered slightly. Then came Dr. Sarah Chun, who explained with devastating clarity the psychological harm Emma and Tyler had suffered. Both children show signs of distress directly attributable to this program, she testified. Emma has developed anxiety around keeping anything for herself. She's internalized that having boundaries is selfish. Tyler's regression and nightmares are textbook trauma response. What was done to them meets the clinical definition of psychological abuse. Cromwell's cross was aggressive, but Dr. Chun held firm. It's not my opinion. It's professional assessment based on decades of research. But more importantly, it's what the children themselves reported. When we listen to children really listen, they tell us what hurts them. Jennifer testified about Sophie's nightmares. Patricia explained how teachers who objected were silent. Other parents described their children's changed behavior. By the end of day 1, we'd built a comprehensive case, but day 2 would be Donna's turn to defend herself. And I knew she'd fight with everything she had left. As we left the courthouse, Michael was cautiously optimistic. We're in a good position, but don't get overconfident. Cromwell has something planned. That night, I barely slept. Tomorrow, Donna would tell her side of the story. Tomorrow, we'd see if truth was enough to win. Day 2 began with Donna Harris taking the stand. She walked to the witness box with her head high, confident despite the cracks showing, the tightness around her mouth, the way her hands gripped the armrest. Cromwell built her up carefully. 30 years in education, awards and recognitions, glowing testimonials. He was reminding everyone why she'd been trusted. Miss Harris explained the philosophy behind sharing hearts. Donna's face softened, her voice passionate. We're living in a divided world, Mr. Cromwell. Children are being raised in economic bubbles, social bubbles. They're taught that what's theirs is theirs, that individual achievement matters most. But that's not sustainable. She leaned forward, earnest and sincere. If we want to raise a generation capable of solving collective problems like climate change, poverty, inequality, we need to teach them early that community matters more than individual ownership. Not because it's trendy, but because it's survival. I truly believe that cooperation is the only way forward. For a moment, she sounded like a visionary, not a villain. How did Sharing Hearts implement this? Gently. We started with sharing classroom supplies, then introduced circles where children could practice vulnerability and empathy. We created a culture where generosity was celebrated and children could examine their relationship with ownership in a safe environment. What about personal items? We asked children to contribute items temporarily to the classroom community. They always got them back. We were teaching that sharing doesn't mean losing, it means growing. And the recordings, Mrs. Collins mentioned? We had general media releases on file. The recordings were for teacher training to help us improve our methods, never for distribution. Did you ever force children to disclose personal information? Donna's eyes actually welled up. Never. The circles were designed to be voluntary, a safe space. If what we were doing was harmful, why did so many children engage enthusiastically? Why did so many parents report positive changes? She looked directly at me, and I saw something I hadn't expected. Genuine pain. Mrs. Collins, I'm sorry your children struggled, truly. But growth is uncomfortable. Evolution is uncomfortable. Sometimes we have to challenge children's comfort zones to help them become better people. I've dedicated my life to education. Every decision I made was because I believed it would help children face the world we've created for them. For a moment, I almost believed her sincerity. Almost. Then Michael stood for cross-examination. Ms. Harris, you said the program was gentle and gradual. When did parents receive specific information about it before implementation? A pause. Our philosophy statements outlined our values-based approach. That's not what I asked. Did you send home a document specifically describing sharing hearts before implementing it? No. But did you obtain written consent from parents before recording their children, discussing personal family matters? We had media releases, general releases for promotional materials, not specific consent for recording therapy-style sessions. They weren't therapy, then what were they? Michael picked up a document. This is your email from September 15th. Read the highlighted portion. Donna's voice was quiet. Videos from sharing circles should be preserved as evidence of program effectiveness for grant reporting purposes. That doesn't sound like teacher training. That sounds like collecting data to support a grant application for $500,000 to save a failing school. The grant would have benefited the children. Let's look at the video evidence. Michael played Tyler's video. The entire courtroom watched my son knock on the door, beg to use the bathroom, be told he could leave when he was ready to put community before personal need. The wet spot spreading, his humiliation, silence when it ended. Miss Harris, do you consider that gentle education? Donna's composure cracked. That was not supposed to happen. Miss Peterson was new. She misunderstood. Did you address it before Mrs. Collins filed this lawsuit or after? Silent. Let's watch another. Emma's sharing circle played. The pressure to disclose about her father, her resistance crumbling. Does that look voluntary? Children sometimes need encouragement to open up, and if they want to keep something private, what then? Donna's voice was barely audible. We help them understand that privacy can be a form of selfishness that prevents community growth. Michael let those words hang in the air. You teach children that privacy is selfishness. You isolate them when they resist. And you call this education? You're twisting. We're done here. No further question. Cromwell spent the rest of day 2 trying to rehabilitate Donna's testimony, bringing in educational theorists who supported communal learning, parents whose children had supposedly benefited, and a child development expert who argued that teaching sharing was always appropriate. But their words felt hollow against those videos, against the reality of Tyler crying and Emma breaking down. During lunch recess, Michael pulled me aside. We're winning, I can feel it. But Cromwell has one more play. He was right. The next morning, Cromwell called Charlotte Temis's former best friend and her mother Melissa as surprise witnesses. I felt betrayed. Melissa had come to my house, told me she believed, said she wished she could help. Now she was testifying for Donna. Charlotte, tiny and nervous, answered Cromwell's questions about loving the program, about it making her closer to her friends, about never being forced to share anything. Michael's cross was gentle. Charlotte, you're in Miss Anderson's class, correct? And she's been at Greenwood for 12 years? Did you ever see what happened in other classrooms? Like Miss Peterson's room? No, sir. So you can only speak about your own experience? Yes, sir. Melissa's testimony was more damaging, praising Donna's vision, suggesting some children simply weren't suited for progressive education. But she wouldn't look at me. Michael's cross was surgical. Mrs. Hayes, your husband works with one of Greenwood's major donors. Did that relationship factor into your decision to testify? Melissa's face flushed. I believe in the program. You came to Mrs. Collins's house 6 weeks ago and told her you believed her. You said you felt like a coward for not speaking up. Were you lying then, or are you lying now? I think the program has merit for some children, but maybe it needs adjustment. Thank you for that honest answer. Finally, closing argument. Cromwell spoke first about fear of change, about one parent's crusade against innovation, about isolated incidents being blown out of proportion. Then, Michael stood. He was silent for a long moment before speaking quietly. Your Honor, Mr. Cromwell talked about everything except what actually happened to the children. So let's talk about that. He pulled up Tyler's video again. This is a 6-year-old being denied a bathroom. That's not education. That's torture. He showed Emma's video. This is an 8-year-old being pressured to share her private pain, being told that keeping it private is selfish. Michael turned to Judge Potter directly. This isn't about educational philosophy. It's about consent, about basic human rights that even children possess, the right to bodily autonomy, privacy, boundaries. He picked up the folder of emails. Miss Harris implemented this program because she needed grant money. She turned children into research subjects without consent. She recorded them. She documented their private moments. She collected data to prove effectiveness so she could secure funding. Michael's voice grew stronger. We're asking for $100,000 in damages for therapy Emma and Tyler will need, for the nightmares, the anxiety, the damage to their ability to trust. But more than money, we're asking for accountability. He paused. We're asking this court to say clearly that what happened was wrong, that educators don't have unlimited authority to experiment on children, that parents have the right to be informed, that consent matters. Michael gestured toward me. Rebecca Collins came here because she heard her son crying and discovered that the school she trusted had betrayed that trust. She did what any parent should do. She protected her children. Then she fought to protect others. He moved back to center. Your Honor, if we dismiss this lawsuit, we're telling every school they can implement whatever program they want without parental consent. We're telling children their boundaries don't matter. We're saying innovation is more important than basic human dignity. His final words were quiet but firm. The evidence is clear. The harm is documented. All that's left is whether any of that matters, whether children's rights matter, whether accountability matters. He sat down. The courtroom was utterly silent. Judge Potter removed her glasses and rubbed her eyes. She looked exhausted. I've heard enough. I'm taking a brief recess to review my notes. 1 hour. That hour was the longest of my life. Michael and I sat in silence. Jennifer found us and squeezed my hand. Whatever happens, you did the right thing. But what if the right thing wasn't enough? The bailiff called us back exactly 1 hour later. Judge Potter entered, her expression unreadable. I've presided over many cases in 15 years, she began, but few have been as emotionally difficult as this one, because this case is about children who trusted adults to keep them safe. My heart was pounding. I want to address Mr. Cromwell's argument first. He suggested this case is about parental control and fear of change. I disagree. This is about consent, boundaries, and basic human dignity. Judge Potter looked directly at Donna. Miss Harris, you're clearly dedicated to education. I don't doubt your good intentions. But good intentions do not excuse what happened at Greenwood Academy. The road to harm is often paved with good intention. She flipped through her notes. The videos showed children in real distress. Tyler Collins was denied access to a bathroom as a method of coercion. That is unacceptable, regardless of educational goals. Emma Collins was pressured to disclose private information against her will. That is psychological coercion, not education, Judge Potter continued. The emails show a systematic program designed to break down children's sense of autonomy. They show deliberate strategies for overcoming resistance. They show that you knew some parents would object, and you planned to manage those parents rather than seek their informed consent. She looked up. The lack of informed consent is particularly egregious. Parents entrust schools with their children's safety. That trust requires transparency. You implemented a program that significantly affected children's psychological development without informing parents. That is a breach of trust and a violation of parental rights. My hands were shaking. After careful consideration of all evidence, I find in favor of the plaintiff on all counts. Greenwood Academy and Donna Harris are liable for violation of parental rights, unlawful seizure of property, and infliction of emotional distress. Tears streamed down my face. Michael grabbed my hand. I am awarding the plaintiff $100,000 in damages. Additionally, I am issuing a permanent injunction prohibiting Greenwood Academy from implementing any version of the Sharing Hearts program. Any future programs involving psychological interventions must include detailed written disclosure and explicit written consent. Judge Potter's expression hardened. Furthermore, Greenwood Academy must provide written notice to every family whose child participated, informing them of this ruling and advising them of resources for evaluation. The school will bear the cost of initial screening. Donna put her head in her hand. Miss Harris, I don't believe you intended to harm children. I think you genuinely believed you were helping them. But impact matters more than intent. The impact was harmful. You prioritized your philosophy and your school's survival over the well-being of children in your care. That is unacceptable. Judge Potter gathered her papers. I hope this sends a clear message. Innovation in education is valuable, but it must never come at the expense of children's basic rights. Informed consent is not optional. Parental involvement is not an obstacle. Children's boundaries deserve respect. She looked at me. Mrs. Collins, you showed remarkable courage. I know it hasn't been easy. I know you've been criticized. But you were right to fight for your children. Every parent should be so dedicated. She banged her gavel. This court is adjourned. The courtroom erupted. Reporters rushed forward. Jennifer was hugging me, crying. Michael was grinning wider than I'd ever seen. I looked across at Donna. She sat alone, her attorneys already packing up. For just a moment our eyes met. I didn't see anger. I saw defeat, exhaustion, maybe even understanding. Then she looked away. Outside, reporters surrounded us. Michael gave a brief statement about parental rights and accountability. I added only, this was never about destroying a school. It was about protecting children. All children. Then I pushed through to my car. I needed to get home to Emma and Tyler. When I pulled into the driveway, David was waiting the kids. They came running before I'd even turned off the engine. Did we win? Emma asked breathlessly. Did you get the bad lady? Tyler added. I knelt and pulled them both into a fierce hug. Yes, we won. And nobody's ever going to take Mr. Snuggles again. Tyler started crying happy tears. Emma held on tight. David stood nearby, his own eyes wet. I'm proud of you, he mouthed. Inside, I explained everything in terms they could understand. The judge said what happened was wrong. The school had to stop. Other kids would be safe now. So we helped people. Emma asked. Yes, baby. We helped a lot of people. She smiled that gap-toothed smile. Good. That's what sharing is supposed to be, right? Helping people when they need it? My daughter understood what Donna never had. Real sharing comes from generosity, not coercion. From choice, not force. From love, not manipulation. That night, after the kids were asleep, I sat in my kitchen and let myself feel everything. The fear, exhaustion, anger, triumph. All of it. My phone buzzed. Michael. Check the news. The headline read, Judge rules against controversial school program, awards $100,000 to mother who sued. The subtitle made me catch my breath. Ruling expected to impact educational policies statewide. We hadn't just won our case. We'd changed something bigger. I thought about all the parents too scared to speak up, the teachers silent, the children who'd suffered in silence. Maybe now they'd know they didn't have to. I raised my glass to the empty kitchen, to the truth tellers. I whispered, always find courage when it matters most. For the first time in months, I slept peacefully. 18 months after the trial, I stood on a stage at a national parenting conference in Chicago, looking out at 300 faces. There were moments when I wasn't sure I was doing the right thing, I told them. When the attacks got vicious, when friends stopped calling, when I wondered if I was destroying a good school over a misunderstanding. Those doubts were real. Heads nodded throughout the audience. But then I'd remember Tyler's face when they took Mr. Snuggles. I'd remember Emma telling me that privacy was selfish, and I'd know I couldn't stop. Because if I stopped, who would protect the next child? I paused, looking at a woman in the front row who was crying quietly. The most important thing I learned is this. Trust your instincts as a parent. You know your child better than any expert. When something feels wrong, it probably is. When your child is hurting and the school dismisses it, don't second-guess yourself. I took a breath. I'm not special. I'm not uniquely brave. I'm a divorced single mom who works too many hours and sometimes feeds her kids cereal for dinner. I fought not because I was confident I'd win, but because I couldn't live with myself if I didn't try. I pulled out my note card with key points. Here's what I learned. First, document everything. Dates, times, conversation. Documentation is the difference between he said, she said, and a solid case. Second, find ally. I would have failed without Patricia, Dr. Jun, Jennifer, and others who supported me. Third, educate yourself about your rights. Schools count on parents not knowing what they're entitled to. Fourth, take care of yourself. Fighting institutions will drain you. You can't advocate for your children if you're depleted. Fifth, shield your children. They don't need to know every detail. Let them be kids while you handle the adult fighting. I looked directly at that crying woman, and finally, know when to fight and when to walk away. Not every battle needs court. Sometimes, the best thing is to quietly change schools and move on. There's no shame in that. My voice grew stronger. But if you do fight, if the situation demands it, if other children are at risk, then fight with everything you have. Fight smart, fight fair, but fight fiercely. Because our children are watching. They're learning what it means to have integrity, to stand up for what's right. I gathered my notes. Emma told me during the trial that she wanted to be a lawyer when she grew up. She wanted to help people who couldn't help themselves. My 8-year-old learned that from watching me fight for her. That's the real victory. Not the money or the ruling. It's raising children who understand justice. So where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments. Because this isn't just my story, it's all of our story. When you stand up for your child, you're standing up for every child. That's how we change things, one brave parent at a time. The applause started before I finished. People stood. After I left the stage, dozens approached with their own stories. One mother grabbed my hands. My son's school has been doing something similar. After hearing you, I'm calling a lawyer tomorrow. Another said, I pulled my daughter out last year but felt like a coward. Thank you for helping me understand that protecting her was enough. Both women were right. Both made the choice they needed for their family. That evening, I video called Emma and Tyler. Emma showed me a story about a girl who stands up to a bully. Tyler told me about his new friend who liked dinosaurs. Normal kid stuff. Beautiful, ordinary kid stuff. How was your talk, Mommy? Emma asked. Good, honey. I told people about what happened to us. Did you tell them we're okay now? I did. Good. Because we are. She smiled, missing 2 front teeth. We're better than okay. We're happy. She was right. We were. Later, I opened my laptop and found an email from a teenager named Alex, Mrs. Collins. I was at Greenwood 4 years ago when Miss Harris first started testing these ideas. I never told anyone because I was embarrassed. But after your lawsuit, I finally told my parents. We've started therapy. I'm not writing to ask for anything. I just wanted you to know your fight mattered to kids like me. Thank you for being brave when we couldn't be. Thank you for proving adults would fight for us. I'm going to be okay now, and it's partly because of Alex. I read it 3 times, tears streaming. This was why I'd fought. For Emma and Tyler. For Alex and Sophie. For every child told their boundaries didn't matter. For all the children whose voices had been silenced. I wrote back immediately, offering support. Then I sat in that hotel room and cried, not from sadness, but from overwhelming relief. Every hard moment had been worth it. 2 years after the trial, I found myself at another courthouse, supporting Catherine, whose daughter's school had implemented a similar program. What if I'm wrong? She asked me in the hallway. What if I'm overreacting? Are you? I asked gently. No. My daughter comes home crying. She started giving away everything. Birthday presents, favorite clothes, even her lunch. The teacher told them that keeping things when others have less makes them morally inferior. She's 9 and thinks she's a bad person for wanting to keep her own belongings. I put my hand on her shoulder. Then you're not wrong. Trust that instinct. But what if we lose? Then you lose knowing you stood up for your child, that you didn't let her suffer in silence, that you taught her that her feelings matter, that adults will fight for her. Those lessons stay forever, Win or lose, you're teaching her about her own worth. Catherine's case settled before trial. The school discontinued the program and agreed to pay for counseling. It wasn't the precedent-setting victory mine had been, but it was a victory. More importantly, it showed that schools were taking these issues seriously now, that parents had power. Collins v. Greenwood Academy had created a blueprint. Others were following it. Now, 3 years after that phone call from Emma, I can see the full picture. Emma is 11. She's confident again, though she still asks questions about rules and boundaries. She joined the debate team and argues passionately about justice. I see the lawyer she wants to become taking shape. Tyler is 9. Mr. Snuggles sits on a shelf now, retired, but honored. Tyler shares easily, but on his own terms. He's generous because he wants to. He's also protective. When he sees someone being pressured, he speaks up. He learned early that silence protects bullies and speaking up protects people. The Children's Advocacy Network has grown beyond anything I imagined. We have chapters in 12 states, helping dozens of families navigate similar situations. Greenwood Academy closed. The building sits empty, a reminder of what happens when ideology overrides common sense, when financial desperation leads to ethical compromise. I don't carry guilt anymore. The school closed because of Donna's decisions, not mine. The Parental Notification and Consent in Education Act has been adopted in 8 states. It requires detailed written notice of programs involving psychological intervention, explicit written consent before enrollment, parent access to all materials and recordings rights, to withdraw children without penalty. It's not perfect, but it's progress. It's accountability. Educational theorists still debate our case. Some call it a victory for parental rights. Others insist I set back progressive education by decades. I've made peace with that disagreement. What matters is that Emma and Tyler know their boundaries are real, that their voices matter, that adults will fight for them. What matters is that other parents know they can stand up to institutions that overstep. What matters is that some schools think twice now before implementing programs without small changes. Incremental progress, but real. Last week, Emma came home with an assignment: write about someone you admire. She'd written about me. I admire my mom because she taught me that standing up for what's right is more important than being popular. When bad things happened to me and my brother, she didn't ignore it. She fought for us even when people said she was wrong. She showed me that sometimes doing the right thing is hard and lonely, but you still have to do it. My mom says courage isn't about not being scared. It's about being scared and doing it anyway. That's why I want to be like her. Not because she won, but because she loved us enough to fight when it was hard. That's real love. That's real courage. That's who I want to be. I held that paper and cried, because despite everything, Emma had learned the right lesson. Not that the world is cruel. Not that people can't be trusted. She'd learned that when faced with injustice, you stand up. That love means fighting for those who can't fight for themselves. That courage is acting despite fear. Tyler, listening to me read it, said quietly, "When I grow up, I'm going to make sure no kids have to be scared at school. Like you did, Mom." My children had taken the worst experience of their young lives and transmuted it into purpose. That's the power of standing up. It shapes who that child becomes. It teaches lessons that ripple out through all their future actions. Emma and Tyler will raise their own children someday, and they'll teach them what they learned: that boundaries matter, that consent is required, that speaking truth to power is always worth it, that one voice can make a difference. So if you're facing your own battle, whether with a school, an institution, a system that isn't listening, know this: you are not alone. Your instincts matter. Your child's well-being trumps institutional convenience, and speaking up, even when it's terrifying, is sometimes the most loving thing you can do. Document everything. Find allies, know your rights, take care of yourself, shield your children, and then fight if the situation demands it. You might win, you might lose, but either way, you'll know you stood up. You'll teach them that their voice matters, their boundaries are real, their well-being comes first. That lesson is worth any fight. My name is Rebecca Collins. 3 years ago, I sued my children's school for implementing a psychological program without consent. People called me crazy, vindictive, a troublemaker. They were wrong. I was simply a mother who refused to let her children suffer in silence, who refused to accept that educational authority overrides parental rights, who refused to believe that questioning institutions is wrong. And I'd do it again in a heartbeat, because protecting children, all children, is always worth it. Always. 3 years after that Tuesday phone call, on a quiet evening, I tucked Emma and Tyler into bed. They were safe, happy, whole. "Good night, my brave ones," I whispered. "Good night, Mommy," they whispered back. "Thank you for protecting us. Always." I promised. Always. And I meant it. If this story touched you, drop a comment below. Tell me your city, share your story, or just let me know you're out there. Because this community of parents who stand up for their kids, that's how we change things, one brave voice at a time. Together, we're stronger than any institution. Together, we protect not just our own children, but the children coming after them. Thank you for being part of this journey. Thank you for caring enough to read to the end. Keep fighting. Keep speaking up. Keep being brave. Our children are counting on us.